There's a thief in Slade Prison. Now there's a surprise. Trouble is, one of them has a taste for Fletcher's pineapple chunks. Classic BBC comedy in 25 minutes. And before that, on BBC One, the evening news with Philip Hayton.
West Yorkshire police arrest a man after 3 young children are left alone in their home. Officers investigating the case buy them presents and say the children didn't know it was Christmas. The gang who raped 2 schoolgirls in southeast London are urged to give themselves up. A security alert at Gatwick airport ends peacefully. A man on a flight from Athens had claimed to have a bomb on board. And that clash between Fashanu and Mabbott, the FA say it was not deliberate. Good evening. 3 children aged 5 and under are tonight in a foster home after being found alone at home in Leeds. Carol singers discovered them with hardly any food and very little bedding. The electricity meter had 11 minutes to run. Police say there were no signs of Christmas in the house, no toys nor decorations. In the words of one policeman, it was just another dark day in their short lives. This evening, police arrested a man, but they're still looking for the children's mother.
It was carol singers on the Woodhouse estate in Leeds who discovered the Home Alone youngsters. They used their carol singing money to buy the 3 children crisps and lemonade, then called the police. Officers found 2 boys aged 5 and 1 and their 4-year-old sister. Their father had left 5 hours earlier without saying when he'd be back.
The house was sparsely furnished, there was very little food in the house, and the electricity was about to terminate any minute. So it was a case of getting the children to a place of safety.
West Yorkshire police say the number of children being left to cope alone is growing. Local people said these 3 children were often unsupervised. But at Christmas, it appears even more heartless.
The fact that 3 children have been left alone at this time of the year in such sad circumstances, they didn't know it was Christmas. As far as these children were concerned, it was just another dark day in their short lives.
Well, they're well placed now, I'm pleased to say, all together with the foster parents in Seacroft, Leeds, and we're happy to say that they're going to have a very good Christmas. They're going to get presents which are provided from social services and the police. They're going to get some good meals. They're going to have some good fun, and they're going to remain being looked after by social services for the next 7 days.
The police presents come from nearly £200 collected by officers who wanted to introduce the children to the true spirit of Christmas. The presents will be delivered in the morning to the foster parents' home. Tonight, detectives said they'd arrested a man, and a man who said he was the father of the children denied that he'd left them to fend for themselves. He blamed a babysitter and said he'd been in touch with police as soon as he found their note saying the children had been taken into care. John Thorne, BBC News, Leeds.
4 children from Sheffield have been taken to foster homes after they were found alone in their house. The 3 girls, aged 12, 10 and 3, and their 1-year-old brother were discovered yesterday evening. Police in the Wood Seats area of Sheffield say they've had such a huge response to an appeal for Christmas gifts for the children that they can't cope with anymore. Police in London say they've had a number of calls about the gang rape of 2 teenage girls by several youths while a large group watched. The attack in Catford on Wednesday evening has been condemned by the local MP as wanton lawlessness. The girls are now being cared for at home.
The 2 girls, aged 14 and 15, got off a bus on Wednesday evening and were heading for this hamburger restaurant in Catford when they were surrounded and grabbed by the gang. The girls were dragged into this alleyway behind these gates beside a public house and raped repeatedly by up to 7 of the gang, who police say are predominantly black and in their late teens. The attacks continued for 20 minutes before someone from the pub disturbed them and they ran off.
Well, obviously the girls are very shocked, and as a result of the incident that's occurred, they are obviously taking medication under doctor's advice.
The emotion every woman and every reasonable person thinks must be horror, absolute horror.
What's your message to this gang?
Some of you weren't happy, some of you couldn't have been happy, and just go down and give yourself up. Tell your parents, tell somebody, but literally give yourself up.
The attack has shocked the local community.
2 young girls, 30 blokes. I think it's disgraceful myself. I think there should be more police on the streets, mate, doing something about it.
It's shocking.
Yeah, because I only live up the road, and like it's going to be hard for people to walk on the street.
Police say the sheer numbers involved in these attacks were extraordinary. There were between 25 and 30 in the gang, the majority looking on and possibly encouraging the rapists. It was, say the police, a dreadful and horrifying ordeal for the girls. Though the attack has caused fear locally, police say it was a rare occurrence in a normally peaceful area. They say they've been receiving calls as a result of the publicity. They believe customers of McDonald's may have seen the girls being grabbed, and they're appealing to witnesses to come forward. Gary Lloyd, BBC News, at Catford in southeast London.
A teenager who was beaten unconscious by a gang in East London last September has come out of a coma. Qudus Ali is said to be making steady progress at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel and has spoken for the first time since his attack. A man has been charged with attempting to murder him. In Israel, the first Christmas celebrations since the signing of the Middle East peace deal have been marred by a series of clashes between Palestinians and Israeli troops. A senior Israeli army officer was shot dead in the occupied Gaza Strip. And there were also disruptions in Bethlehem, where people were allowed to celebrate in the main square for the first time at Christmas in 7 years.
Raising the Palestinian flag over Bethlehem. Under Israeli law, that's illegal, and the police had earlier taken it down. This time, there was some pushing and shoving, but the police didn't intervene to take it down. The Palestinians saw it as a small but symbolic victory. The Israelis thought it was deliberately provocative, but since technically speaking the flag wasn't flying on a building, they decided to ignore it. By evening, people were heading in through the army checkpoints to join the celebration after a gap of 6 Christmases. Manger Square in the centre was relatively recently built, and it's a big commercial enterprise, not all of it in the best possible taste. Still, the celebrations look good to the man who runs Bethlehem.
Makes me very happy indeed, because I consider Bethlehem to be the capital of the Christmas wear.
Down below, a Palestinian pipe band harked back to the days of the British Mandate. And by now there was no shortage of Palestinian flags, even one in the shop run by the mayor's family.
So this isn't simply the first Christmas Eve to be celebrated here in Manger Square for 7 years. It's also got a distinctly Palestinian flavour to it. And although the Israeli soldiers up on the rooftops may not altogether like the sight of the Palestinian flags, they seem to be under instructions not to do anything about them.
In the meantime, choirs from round the world were starting to perform Christmas music. A Fijian choir sang from the Messiah. This will presumably be the last Christmas before limited self-rule for Palestinians is introduced. It might be commercial, but at least it was peaceful here. John Simpson, BBC News, Bethlehem.
The 4 main church leaders in Northern Ireland have united in calling for a permanent end to violence in the province. On the first day of the IRA's 3-day ceasefire, they appealed to the terrorists to grasp the gauntlet of peace.
The leaders of the 4 main churches in Ireland met the Prime Minister on his visit to Northern Ireland 2 days ago. They were consulted by John Major and the Irish Prime Minister Albert Reynolds before the Downing Street Declaration. Today, the Catholic Primate, Cardinal Cahill Daly, urged the IRA to take up the gauntlet of peace offered by Mr Major and the Taoiseach.
I think that the declaration gives everyone the opportunity of working peacefully for their own aims, whatever they may be, without threatening anyone, without any intention or desire to coerce anyone.
The Presbyterian moderator, head of the largest Protestant denomination in Northern Ireland, echoed his call, but he warned that the benefits of peace would not be immediate.
There's a lot of distrust, there's a lot of bitterness, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of sorrow and distress, and everybody has been hurt. That hurt has to be healed. If peace was declared tomorrow, there wouldn't be, certainly the hurts would still go on for a long time to come.
On this, the first day of the IRA's temporary Christmas ceasefire, the hope of most people in Northern Ireland is that 1994 might bring a permanent end to the violence of the last 25 years. Noreen Erskine, BBC News, Belfast.
A security alert at Gatwick airport has ended. A man was led away by police after the alert, which began when a passenger on board an aircraft claimed he was carrying a bomb in a suitcase. The plane, an Airbus 320 owned by Excalibur Airways, was flying from Athens to Gatwick. There were more than 170 people on board flight EXC 5812. After it landed at Gatwick at 8:30 this evening, the airliner taxied to a remote corner of the airport where it was surrounded by police. No bomb was found, and the passengers began leaving the plane at about 10 o'clock. 4 gunmen in southern Russia have released 7 school children and a teacher in return for a $10 million ransom. But it's thought they're still holding hostage 4 boys and 3 adults on board a helicopter. The group was kidnapped yesterday from a school at Rostov-on-Don. They flew to Krasnodar and then to Minerali Vodi. Some reports say they're heading for Iran. The Iranian government has condemned the kidnapping.
The helicopter carrying the teenage hostages flew into this airport in southern Russia today, where anti-terrorist troops were standing by to storm the aircraft if ordered to. Instead, though, the authorities decided on a softly approach. The 4 gunmen on board the helicopter were known to be extremely well armed. It's thought they're probably from the Caucasus region and have religious sympathies with Iran, where they want to fly to. But their main motive seems to have been financial. They demanded a ransom of $10 million. And to many people's surprise, the Russian government came up with the money. It arrived from Moscow in bagfuls of $100 bills. The cash had been hastily borrowed from commercial banks in the capital. As a result, most of the school children were then released. They seemed exhausted after their ordeal, but otherwise in good spirits. One of the hostages told Russian television they hadn't been badly treated, that the kidnappers allowed them blankets, for example, when they got cold. The children had been kidnapped yesterday from their classroom in the town of Rostov-on-Don, gunmen firing shots into the ceiling. Ever since, distraught relatives have been waiting anxiously for news, amid reports that the kidnappers were either on drugs or suffering from syphilis or AIDS. Negotiators have spent the day pleading for the release of all the hostages. They're hoping that the 4 boys still on board will be freed later. A special government task force, which has taken charge of the crisis, may be accused of giving in to the kidnappers, but any assault on the helicopter would almost certainly end in a bloodbath. Ben Brown, BBC News, Moscow.
The Christmas ceasefire in Bosnia has largely been ignored by the 3 warring factions as battles raged in most parts of the country. The capital, Sarajevo, has again come under Serb artillery attack, and heavy fighting has continued around Vitez and Gornji Vakuf in central Bosnia. In the Muslim enclave of Bihać, in the northwest, a French UN soldier was shot and killed. Meanwhile, British troops in the country have been doing their best to lift the spirits of the local people.
Before dawn and day 3 of the Muslim offensive on the Lashva Valley. 70,000 Croats live here. They've lost some villages this week. The Muslims have gained ground. The local Croat commander in Vitez, Colonel Tihomir Blaškić, says this is one of the worst attacks since the war began in the valley. The Muslims are pushing forward from 6 positions in the hills. No one expects the offensive to ease, certainly not for Christmas. The season has brought freshly wounded and homeless. The fighting has closed roads and stopped help and supplies getting to them. Despite the misery around them, British troops keep the Christmas spirit. They worship in the gymnasium of the battered Vitez school. It's now their base headquarters. The chaplain appeals for peace. The troops pray for their families in England and for an end to the Bosnian war. They also help the children forget, at least for one party. For the refugees and the orphans, Soldier Santa came with sweets. A folk dance, a culture the Croats say they're fighting to keep alive. That's what the war's all about. Tonight it's balloons, tomorrow it's mortars and snipers again. Humphrey Hawksley, BBC News, Vitez.
The United Nations Secretary-General, Dr. Boutros Ghali, has crossed the world's last Cold War frontier into North Korea. The purpose of his visit is to discuss the country's nuclear development program. It's the first time the UN Secretary-General has visited North Korea since partition from the South 40 years ago. Although his visit was officially welcomed, a government statement said the United Nations was responsible for the division of the Korean peninsula. Dr. Boutros-Ghali said North Korea's suspected armory threatens not only the peace of the region, but also the global non-proliferation treaties. Here, the Home Office has confirmed that 22 Jamaicans who've been held at a detention centre in Oxfordshire are expected to be sent back to Jamaica within the next 24 hours. Earlier today, the leader of the Transport and General Workers Union, Bill Morris, visited the centre. Arriving with gifts for the detainees, Mr. Morris described their treatment as appalling. They're the last of the 190 people who were held after their plane landed at Gatwick Airport on Tuesday. Tottenham Hotspur's manager Ozzy Ardiles has reacted angrily to the FA's decision not to charge the Wimbledon striker John Fashanu with misconduct over his collision last month with the Spurs captain Gary Mabbutt. Ardiles said Tottenham would support Mabbutt, who suffered severe facial injuries, if he decided to take legal action against Fashanu.
It was after repeatedly studying this video of last month's incident, when Fashanu's elbow made shattering contact with Gary Mabbutt's face, that the FA decided not to charge the Wimbledon striker with misconduct. That's despite Mabbutt being left with multiple fractures to his cheekbone and eye socket. He needed emergency surgery and hasn't played since. The Tottenham captain was reluctant to lodge a complaint, but then his club did, with his consent. Both players gave evidence to yesterday's 4-hour hearing, and Fashanu was cleared even though the referee, Keith Hackett, allegedly changed his original view that it had been an accident.
Nobody is questioning for one moment the degree of injuries that Gary Mabbutt has suffered, but the members of this commission were not satisfied that there was a degree of intent that would warrant taking the matter any further.
And today, Fashanu revealed that his victim had aided his cause.
Gary helped my case. He really did. Fellow professional footballer, I wouldn't expect him to do any otherwise. He went in there and he spoke the truth and he said it as it was, not how other people suggested it was.
The verdict has not gone down well here at Tottenham, with manager Ozzy Ardiles describing the hearing as a waste of time and adding that Spurs still have very strong feelings about the incident. Spurs say they'll support Mabbutt if he wants to take private legal action. The player himself says he's yet to decide about that. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
Dozens of gun owners in New York have been lining up at police stations to hand over their weapons in exchange for $100 worth of toys. The scheme is being paid for by a businessman who's concerned about violence on the city's streets.
New York police said it's a scheme to bring peace at Christmas. Turn in your gun and collect a $100 voucher for a toy department store. A businessman is funding it.
This is an opportunity for you to come forward, turn over your weapons, and put some gifts under the trees.
In this tough New York precinct, children are often killed or injured by guns, in shootings and in accidents. A police department buyback scheme offering between $25 and $75, depending on the gun, has recovered nearly 4,000 weapons. This man was the first to collect a toy voucher for his pistol. Local people are skeptical about the effect on gun crime.
No, because people going to still get guns regardless. And they're going to have more than one anyway, so.
But police believe that in the spirit of Christmas, the Toys for Guns scheme must be worth a try. Mike Donkin, BBC News, Washington.
The dream of a white Christmas has already come true for the Peak District and parts of Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. But in Shropshire and Worcestershire, it's a damp Christmas with severe flooding. In Shrewsbury, the River Severn is several feet above its normal level. And in Sussex, 12 families lost their homes because of subsidence caused by the rain.
Torrential rain brought flooding to Worcestershire and Shropshire. Roads were closed and villages cut off when the River Severn rose 12 feet above its normal level at Shrewsbury. A red flood alert was issued in the Worcester area. The vicar of this church at Melverley cancelled Christmas services when villagers could get through only by tractor.
In order to get to Melverley from my house, it's about 20 miles to get into Shrewsbury and out around the flood. And if I got here, the people in the various parts of the village couldn't get across the water to the church anyway.
Bookmakers have been taking bets on a white Christmas for parts of Britain, and snow has already fallen in some areas, like here in Northern Ireland. More people than ever this Christmas have escaped in search of sunshine. 500,000 people will spend the holiday abroad. The most popular short-haul destinations, the Canary Islands, Tunisia and Cyprus.
Last Saturday we handled something like 150,000 passengers, and between then and New Year's Eve, something like 1 million passengers would have passed through Heathrow.
It's a miserable Christmas, though, for 12 families in the village of Franklin's near Haywards Heath in Sussex. Their houses are falling down. Heavy rain in the past 24 hours caused them to subside.
Came out and just right on Christmas Eve, you know, everything all planned for Christmas and all your food and everything, you know, it's just all gone haywire. Christmas presents all, you know, you just don't know what to do with everything now.
Instead of spending Christmas at home, they'll be staying with friends and relatives. Michael Vesti, BBC News.
The main news again, carol singers in Leeds have found 3 young children left alone in their home. A man has been arrested. Police are still looking for the children's mother. Good night and a very happy Christmas from all of us at BBC News.
As Christmas Day approaches, a traditional celebration of the first Eucharist of Christmas comes live from historic Winchester Cathedral in 35 minutes on BBC One at the new time of 25 to 12.
Good evening. Stores in many parts of the northwest have reported record Christmas sales. The numbers are up in Manchester, Preston and Liverpool.
It's been a sellout Christmas. Empty shelves and a sustained spending spree have meant good news for traders in most of the region. Officials at the Fishergate Centre in Preston say their car parks have been full for the past 2 weeks. That's never happened before. In Manchester's Arndale Centre, business is said to be well up on last year.
Generally speaking, we think there's more cash around at the moment. Whether or not the cash has been, the building side has been relieved of that cash because of their low interest rates, but certainly money is cheaper now to obtain.
It's the same story in Liverpool. Generally, the region could see festive business up by as much as 10% compared to a year ago.
A post-mortem has revealed that Stefan Kishko, the man jailed for a murder he didn't commit, died from natural causes. Mr. Kishko's body was found yesterday by his mother at their home in Rochdale. The coroner has said he won't be holding an inquest. Mr. Kishko was convicted of murdering 11-year-old Leslie Molseed in 1976, but he was released last year by the Court of Appeal. A group of workers in the northwest are preparing to celebrate Christmas, separated from their families by a 25-mile stretch of water. The British gas rigs off Morecambe Bay continue to operate all year round, and chefs are putting the final touches to tomorrow's all-important meal for the 150-strong crew.
Oh, it takes, we're weeks before, really. Yeah. There's a lot of preparation to do. As you saw the cakes there, we've got a bacon, marzipan, and ice, and
lobsters, king prawns, scallops, venison. Quite a selected menu.
Very nice too. That's it. Next, the weather with Peter Cockcroft. But from all of us here, good night and have an enjoyable and peaceful Christmas.
Good evening. The good news is that parents can now breathe a sigh of relief. The latest from Lapland is that there's plenty of snow up there for Santa's big night out. The takeoff fairly soon now, 80 centimetres of snow, in fact 2.5 feet, and there's a light northeasterly wind, so that'll blow him in the right direction. Now, he shouldn't have any problems landing up over the Highlands of Scotland. There's plenty of snow there, as much as 11 centimetres, getting on for a foot of snow. And there's snow lying over the hills of northern England, the mountains of Northern Ireland, right the way down the Pennines, the mountains of Wales and the West Country moors have got some snow. And they're likely to see some more snow overnight, as you can see here on the weather radar. Quite a marked band of echo coming in there from the west. That'll give some snow up over the higher ground, up over the Welsh mountains and the West Country moors, some sleet and some rain at lower levels. And we could find the odd snowflake getting as far across as Hampshire through the night. Now, there will be some wintry showers further east, and it is going to be a very cold night, particularly down through mainland Britain, a widespread frost, so some icy patches on the roads to watch out for if you are out and about late tonight. Now, tomorrow, Christmas Day, it'll start off rather cloudy in the southwest, some more rain, sleet and snow up over the hills. Brighter weather will be pushing in to Northern Ireland, bright and showery weather running down across northwestern England and into central areas, and still a scattering of wintry showers down that eastern side. Now, they'll keep going throughout Christmas Day, but we will find brighter weather working its way down across the Irish Sea, but still some showers left. They're likely to be wintry over northwestern England and across North Wales, probably of snow, sleet over the higher ground for the West Country. Now, it will be a very cold Christmas Day. Temperatures at best around about 3 or 4 Celsius, perhaps up to 6 degrees down in the West Country, but do wrap up warm if you are going out and about. And for Christmas Sunday, well, it's going to stay cold and frosty, rather cloudy in the east, some more wintry showers there, and some cloud bringing some rain and sleet into the west, and really not much change as far as Boxing Day is concerned.